والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity for us to continue with our lesson in the Kitab of Nur al-Idah, written by Al-Imam Hassan Shugun Bulali. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah bless in this lesson, make it a reason where sins are forgiven, prayers are answered. Ameen. Ya Rabbal Alameen. It has been some time and we have not had any this lesson, and that is any with regards and due to some things that is occupying us in the mosque currently, because we are moving from an old and into a new place. So inshallah, from this weekend onwards, hopefully that we can have our lesson as per schedule, inshallah. So in the Nur al-Idah, we are still in the chapter of Tayammum, and in our last lesson, we spoke about the reasons that make it permissible for us to do Tayammum. So we spoke about not having water. If a person doesn't have any water and the water that is present is far away, the author gave this example: كَبُعْدِهِ مِيلًا عَنْ مَاءٍ وَلَوْ فِي الْمِصْرِ. And if there is any water but it is a mile away, so a mile here is about 1.8 kilometers. 1.8 kilometers. If anything that is more than 1.8, then it is permissible for us to do tayammum, because anything that is 1.8 and above is considered to be far. So if it is within any distance that is near, then it is compulsory upon us to use water. Otherwise, we can perform any tayammum. So number two is when there is a sickness, al-marad. Number two is when a person has a sickness. For example, he cannot use water. If he uses any water, the sickness will prolong, or it can lead to death or dysfunction in one of the body parts. Then we can use any tayammum. Number three, if a person, for example, in a state of coldness, and he or she doesn't have the proper clothing to cover themselves, and if by using any water, it can lead to serious consequences and diseases. Or sicknesses. This is where the author mentioned وَبَرْدٍ يُخَافُ مِنْهُ التَّلَفْ أَوْ الْمَرَضْ خَارِجَ الْمِصْرِ. If this is out of the country, if it is outside of the country, if a person is in the state of coldness and extreme coldness, this we can imagine. And if a person is staying somewhere in the northern countries, in Iceland, and for example in the time of winter, North Pole and some parts of Russia, if a person doesn't have any proper clothing, then it can lead to death and serious diseases. Number four, وَخَوْفُ عَدُو. If a person is scared of an enemy, if he goes out to take any water from the river, for example, there is an enemy that is waiting to kill him. In this situation, it is permissible for him to do tayammum if there is no water in his presence. Number five, if a person has water, but he is extremely thirsty, atash. So which one does he give any preference? Preference for taking wudu with the water or drinking? The Islam mentioned there saving any lives, and is given any precedence. If given precedence that if a person permissible for him to drink from the water, and then he does any tayammum. Number six, وَاحْتِيَاجٍ لِعَجْنٍ. If a person he has water but is in need of water. Why? لِعَجْن. Ajn is basically when you put any water in this flour, and then for you to make bread. So without any water, you cannot make any the bread. So there is a need for you to use the water. So in this case, it's permissible for you to use the water for ajn, for making the bread. That is permissible, and you can do tayammum, and the water can be used for ajn. La litabakhi maraqin, but not if the water is used for gravy. Water for gravy, it is not any permissible, meaning the water any can be used any for tayammum, because this is not any a dire need. This is not any a dire need. But when it comes into ajn, if there is no water, then people any cannot eat any from the flour. But different any when it comes into maraq, yani when it comes into the gravy, yani if there is any no water, but still people any can consume any food, yani and prevent any from starvation. Number 7, lifaqdi alatin, yani if a person doesn't have any the proper any tools any to get any the water, yani from the well any for example, then it is permissible any for him any to do tayammum even though there is water. But the problem is there can be no access any to the water. Number 8, khawfi fawti salati janazatin aw eidin walau bina'an fihima. Now the author gives an example of two types of prayers. That is the janazah prayers and the Eid any prayers. Yani meaning, if a person, for example, and he comes into the masjid and he wants to perform janazah prayers and he has no wudu. If he said that if I were to take any wudu, the janazah yani will be over. So in this case, if I do tayammum, I can still get any janazah prayers. So in this situation, in the Hanafi madhab, it is permissible for him to do tayammum. Why? Because janazah prayers cannot be paid back. There is no qada for janazah prayers. Likewise, any pertaining to Eid prayers. Once it is done, you cannot any perform it anymore. So in this any situation, if a person doesn't have wudu, and if he were to perform any ablution, then the prayers any will be over. So in this situation, it is permissible any for him to do tayammum and enter into the prayer, janazah prayer and also the Eid prayer. So that any he gets any validity any of the prayer. Otherwise, any there is no qada. But when it comes any to Jum'ah prayers, as what any the author mentioned any after this. Before that, any he said walau bina'an fihima. Bina'an any meaning you enter any into the prayer, meaning you enter part any of the prayer. For example, janazah prayers, you enter at the 4th any takbir. So what happens any when the imam any does any the salam, then you have to continue with your prayers. Now this is the meaning of bina'an. Likewise, any when comes any to the Eid any prayers, you enter into the prayers and in the second rak'ah, meaning you get any the prayers, but you just have to pay one more. وَلَيْسَ مِنَ الْعُذْرِ خَوْفُ فَوْتِ الْجُمْعَةِ. Now the author any speaks any about the Jum'ah prayers. What happens any if Jum'ah prayers, you don't have wudu, and then if you say that if I were to take any wudu, the Jum'ah yani will be over. In this situation, is it permissible for me to do tayammum? No, it is not permissible. Why? Because Jum'ah prayers any we can make up any for the prayer by praying Zuhur. But when it comes into janazah and Eid prayers, you cannot any make up any for those prayers. So there is a difference any between the Jum'ah prayers, likewise any the Zuhur and Asr. All these any prayers any can be prayed again. So that is why the author mentioned وَلَيْسَ مِنَ الْعُذْرِ خَوْتُ فَوْتِ الْجُمْعَةِ وَالْوَقْتِ. So it is not any permissible, what you call it, a person, for example, leave any the Jum'ah any prayers any for tayammum any for example. And if a person any is late any for Jum'ah prayers, and he said that if I were to take any my ablution, the Jum'ah prayers any will be over. So now I am going to the tayammum. No, this is not permissible, because Jum'ah prayers any can be prayed again, meaning can be make up any for the prayer by praying any Zuhur. الثالث أن يكون تيمم بطاهر من جنس الأرض. Number 3, any the author speaks any about when we do any tayammum, what do we do the tayammum with? So he said أن يكون تيمم بطاهر, يعني the soil or the dust any that we are using any from tayammum, it must be pure, min jinsil ardi, and it must be something that comes any from the earth, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, فَتَيَمَّمُوا صَعِيدًا طَيِّبًا. Sa'id is anything that comes any from the earth. So that is why the author mentioned بِطَاهِرٍ مِنْ جِنْسِ الْأَرْضِ. So it must be any pure, and it must be something that originate any from the earth. كَالتُّرَابِ, like the soil, وَالْحَجَرِ, stones, وَرَمَل, the sand. So if, for example, I do tayammum any on soil, I do tayammum any on the stones, I do tayammum any on sand, it is permissible. Why? Because all these things any are elements any that comes any from the earth. Lal hatab, not this wood. Wood and is different, and wood and it comes in from trees. Likewise, wal fiddati wal dhahabi, because these are metals. These are any metals. It is not any from jinsil ard. It is not any from things that comes any from the earth and soil. But it is a different any types any of element any altogether. So it is not permissible to do tayammum any on both. Warabi', number 4, isti'abul mahal bil mashi. Yani number 4, when we do any tayammum, we have any to make sure that the dust enters any into that we encompass any the whole face and the whole hands. This is the meaning of isti'ab. Isti'abul mahal bil mashi. Yani we wipe any our whole face and we wipe any our hands. So it is compulsory upon us to remove rings if we are wearing rings, for example. So anything that prevents any soil from reaching, we have to make sure that it is not there. Al-Khamis, number 5, an yamsaha bi jami'il yad. Yani when we wipe our face, we wipe with the whole hands. It is not any permissible to wipe with 2 hands or 1 finger. It is not any permissible, because in the Quran Allah mentioned فَتَيَمَّمُوا صَعِيدًا طَيِّبًا فَامْسَحُوا بِوُجُوهِكُمْ. He mentioned فَتَيَمَّمُوا صَعِيدًا طَيِّبًا. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He speaks about wiping any of the face and the hands. So it has to be wiped. So he mentioned ayamsaha bi jami' al-yad, and with the whole hand, or bi akthariha, or with most of it. Because now, when we speak about hands, we are speaking about this whole hands or the most of it. But what happens if a person wipes bi usbu'ain? So he say la yajuz. The author mentioned this is not permissible, because this is not considered to be hands. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the word bi aidikum. Bi aidikum. Aid, what you call it, refers to the hands. That is why in the Hanafi madhab, it is not permissible except that we do tayammum with the hands. If anything that is not considered to be the hands, then it is not permissible. Like 1 finger, this considered to be finger. But if I do this considered to be the hands. La yajuzu walau karra hatta istaw'aba. It is not permissible, and if 2 isba'. This is the example the author gave. Even we can cover the whole face, but with 2 fingers. Bi khilafi mashi ras. But different when it comes into wiping of the head, because in the Quran, when it comes into the wiping of the head, wamsahu bi ru'usikum wa arjulakum ila al-ka'bayn wamsahu bi ru'usikum. So it is not any specific, when it comes into the hands. But when it comes into tayammum, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned fatayammamu sa'idan tayyiba wamsahu bi wipe your face and your hands. Now, السادس أن يكون بضربتين بباطن الكفين. Number 6, that we use with 2 taps. 1 tap for the face, and 1 tap for the hands. Walau fi makanin wahid. And even if we do it at the same place. Now, so the next thing the author mentioned, وَيَقُومُ مَقَامَ الضَّرْبَةٍ إِصَابَةُ التُّرَابِ جَسَدَهُ إِذَا مَسَعَهُ بِنِيَّةِ التَّيَمُّمِ. So now the author mentioned, likewise, when a person does tayammum, if, for example, the dust touches the body, and then he makes the intention of tayammum. Now this is a situation where, for example, where there is dust that is in the air. So is it permissible for me to use my hands and to take the dust and do tayammum? So now what the author is saying, that there is no tapping, because tapping we tap on the earth. But if there is dust in the air, then it is permissible for us to take the dust from the air, and by making the intention of tayammum, then it will be valid. Likewise, in the Mazhab Imam Shafi, and we speak about this, and if there is a sandstorm, so we take the dust from the air with the intention of tayammum, and we wipe our face, we do it again and wipe in our hands. So, meaning there is no tapping, but the dust is present in the air. As-sabi' inqita'u ma yunafi. Number 7, condition number 7 is that there is nothing that present, that that nullifies it. For example, min haydin or nifasin or hadathin, yani if a person in a state any of hayd any, for example, so there is no point in you of doing any tayammum because hayd any is mani'. Likewise, any postnatal bleeding, or in a state any of hadath, when a person any is in a state any of hadath, then what you call it, the tayammum yani becomes an invalidated. Athamin zawalu ma yamna'u al-masha 'ala al-bashara ka sham'in wa shahmin. If there is anything any that prevents the dust any from entering the skin, the author any give any shama. Shama any is wax. Like if a person any has wax, or shahm, yani this kind any of grease that prevents any the dust any from reaching the skin, it is not valid. The tayammum any is not valid. وَسَبَبُهُ وَشُرُوطُ وُجُوبِهِ كَمَا ذُكِرَ فِي الْوُضُوءِ. And likewise, any when it comes any to the conditions, other conditions, and the conditions any of its obligation, it is the same any as mentioned any in the chapter of wudu. And the integrals any for tayammum, mashul yadain wal wajh. These are the two integrals. Yani wiping any of the hands and wiping any of the face. Wallahu alam bis-sawab. In our next lesson, inshallah, yani we will speak any about the sunnahs any of tayammum. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.